Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me for another of my videos. Today, somewhat different today because I've got Gavin back from Sovereign Empowerment, and we're going to be discussing something a little bit well, I'm a bit nervous about it, putting it on this channel, and you'll see why. Because this is an area that's relatively new to me. I've heard bits of it in little bits, and I'm hoping that Gavin can put all the dots together. Hello, Gavin.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me back. I
It's a, it's
appreciate
a,
it.
it is a pleasure. It's always good to find out what you're up to. I know you're a busy man saving people from all sorts of mundane stuff to, you could say, but it's of course to those people who've got the bailiffs banging on their doors. There's nothing very mundane about that. First of all, how's that all going?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's a catch-22, isn't it? Because normally you say how you're getting on, and I'm really busy, and normally that's a good thing. But it's
Yeah.
kind of a double-edged sword. We're really busy, but we're dealing with a lot of people in tricky positions. So in that regard, it's not good. But I guess the flip side as well is that there's an awful lot more people making their stand now, which is why they're getting into these tricky positions. But
Yeah, and
we've
the authorities must be starting to, talk to each other and say, are you getting more people questioning council tax? Are you getting more people coming to, there must be this, because it seems like no other time that people have been sort of pushing back.
has to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I obviously work with behind the scenes. Damon's one of the guys. We've did a recent video on our channel called the Strawman to Lawman series,
Hmm.
and he's having a lot of success. Actually, I've got a few of his cases we're going to be doing some videos with, just to talk about the successes and how to approach doing this stuff. But the main thing that we're trying to get across to people now is that it's about their personal liability, and their you can sue them. We can do something about this. We can stop it. So that's really the big thing that I'm on now, is just sort of sharing that knowledge and getting that out there. We've partnered with a really good law course from America. There's a guy called Dr. Graves. Is a very experienced law attorney of the people, and he's put all of his knowledge, his wealth of knowledge, into this law course, which teaches us how to sue people, how to do proper defences, how to move the courts, all of this information that generally isn't out there in video format. So we're just sort of really behind that. And as I say, where people need hands-on assistance, we're happy to step in and give a hand where we can. So that's going well. But the other reason I wanted to sort of talk today, and I'm in an R in whether to do this or not. We're all awakening, we're all going on our journey, and we all know that part of that awakening is not just about the law and fighting the councils or whatever we're doing, and there's a bigger picture at play. And one of the reasons I felt more compelled to do this now is that there's a lot of FUD, there's a lot of doom mongering, there's a lot of newly awakened people that are kind of trying to work out what on earth is actually going on, who to believe, what's true, what's not. And one of the things I feel is missing a lot of the time is the perspective that there are good guys here,
Mm.
and there are a lot of good things going on. And it seems to me that the let's just call them the FUD merchants, for want of a better word, they seem to have more of a say in a narrative at the moment. And I feel that people are going down some very dark holes, feeling that it's just doom and gloom, and nothing's good's going to come of what's coming. And I wanted to hopefully put a different perspective to that by just doing a high level presentation on some facts that people can then start digging into and forming a very different picture. Because I, for one, I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm really excited about what's to play out, and I just want to sort of share some of that positivity and that energy to people, to say that,
That
listen,
that's so
it's not
good.
as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
if no, I was just agreeing with you. That's so good because I think when you wake up, and I've been on this journey for the last 9 months, which it still seems like only yesterday, really. So I always tell people I'm the baby of the party, as it were. But as people begin to wake up and then they start looking at the rabbit holes and they go down, you do get this very sort of awful feeling that it is all going in one direction and not a very pleasant one, and that we're all at the end of it, we're all dead.
We're all, yeah.
And it does take a lot of effort, really, to crawl yourself out and look for the positive. And of course, most people, like news, prefer, for whatever reason, to hear bad stories rather than the positive stories. So I'm very excited about what you're about to present to me. Nervous
Right.
as well because of the YouTube algorithm, but
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
worry about that as we get to it.
And I think on that note, folks, just bear with us a bit because, we're on a platform where you've got to be careful about what you say and potentially even show. So
Mm.
I've never done anything like this where you've got to try and duck and dive and talk in code. So we'll see how we get on, right?
Yeah.
So I think first of all, just to sort of set the scene, just from a rational perspective,
Yeah.
there's going to be folks watching this that have no idea about what I'm talking about. There'll be others that maybe have gone into this and then come back out of it because of varying reasons. And I just want to put the facts across. So just to sort of set the scene, back in, let me just do a quick screen share to just say this because I can't necessarily say this on this platform. But back in 2020, there was this.
Yes.
Okay. And that happened in the United States. And so I just want to put a few facts there that, in my experience, not too many people are aware of, and that the United States have a constitution. And under that constitution, were that event to happen, and were the sitting guy in control, shall we say,
Yes.
were to concede in that situation, then they would be guilty of high treason, and that is punishable by death.
Wow.
Now,
Right.
we know as a provable fact that that has never happened. In fact, it's gone the other way, and we know that the establishment globally has been very, very proactive in trying to dismiss it and paint a negative picture. And there's been some very recent events, shall we say, where he's been indicted.
Mm.
And there's actually a big trial coming up in January, which I'll go back to in a second. Now, whatever your thoughts about that individual, and we'll call him Mr. T, it's not relevant. Okay. And it may be that I would say to some people, if you do have a negative perception, just keep an open mind, maybe step back from that and just maybe dig into, and I always say this to people, if you go watch past videos of what that guy said, we're at a point in time now where a lot of things have happened, and it's very easy to confirm that he's never lied. And in fact, everything that's playing out right now, years before, he predicted. So it points to something else going on. Now, given we know there's a constitution, given we know that something happened in 2020, the question I would pose to folks is that, do we honestly believe that they never knew that that would happen, and that they've just been caught blindsided and all of a sudden they're just reacting to this big thing that's happened? Or do we think that there are some smart people in some seriously high positions of power that maybe knew that that was going to happen and are prepared for that event, and therefore everything that's playing out right now has a different perspective to perhaps the narrative that we've been taking in and maybe getting scared of? I think it's safe to say rationally that if there were a bunch of bad guys doing bad things with a plan to, do us in, as it were,
especially when they advertise it as well.
Exactly. It's rational to conclude that there will probably be some high-powered people globally that want to do something about it.
Yes.
And when you're in a situation like that, there is a jurisdiction of law that tends to reign supreme. And we've got historical precedent to confirm this stuff. And that's military law. And what I want to start showing you guys is that this is true. And you can very easily take what I'm about to show you and dig into this stuff in your own. And you will form a very different picture to the one I think that is being played out in the mainstream. And even in our movement, there's certain channels that are promoting the FUD. Okay. So in that situation, then, were he not to concede, which he didn't, it is a fact that he would remain as the commander-in-chief of the US military. And in that situation, there are obviously protocols, let's just call them protocols, that they're meant to follow that would allow what was called devolution to play out and a continuity of government. Now, there are, in fact, let me just show you this now. So I can, there are a number of executive orders that were signed into power well before 2020. And these executive orders, one of them actually particularly, has been extended by a certain incumbent that confirms that were they guilty of what that executive order, expresses. I'm trying to get my words right, guys, so please bear with me. I'm trying to
you're
saying.
doing incredibly well.
were they guilty of what that executive order expresses, they are punished. It's punishable by death. So the question would be: is why would the incumbent, knowing that's in power and knowing what it does, extend it?
Yes.
Doesn't make any sense. So it certainly points to something else playing out. But I just want to show you these two executive orders. So first of all, which one was this one here? Blocking. Right, that's not the one I want to show you. I want to show you the next one. Here we go. So this is all publicly available information. You can Google this stuff. It's all there. It's all on the government. This is America, but on their government website. Okay, so
Right.
these are still in play. Now, this is the one I want to show you initially, and then just see here what this says. I won't say this out loud, but it's pretty clear. Okay, and we can see when this came into fruition.
Well before the thing that happened.
Well before the thing. So I think just by looking at this, we can confirm that they knew what was going to play, and therefore they set a trap. Okay, and if we just find any videos of Mr. T saying anything, he's very clear, and he said this numerous times. We caught them all. We have it all. So that's not a soundbite. That's a fact, and it's a fact that is being executed using law. Okay, so this here, I won't go through all of it. Now, folks watching this, if you really want to get up to speed on what's really going on and how this is globally being taken down, start with these, because it's all in there. Now, I'm going to just show you something. This bit here brings this into an an international perspective. It gives them the power to do this globally. And this here, in the event of this happening, okay, foreign interference. Well, let's just be very clear about that. That's an act of war. That is a provable act of war, and that has occurred. And we can say that's occurred because this was already in play, right? To catch exactly that scenario happening. Yeah. Now, I haven't got all of the proof here because we'd be here for hours and hours if I validated this, but everything I'm saying to you folks is 100% confirmable as true, and you can easily do your own research to confirm this stuff. Now, in that situation, given that we know that happened, given that we know he's still the commander-in-chief, given we know there's military protocols that would then need to play out, and given we know that there was foreign interference, I can say that it was more than one country, and our country was one of those that was involved in this little trick that they played. Okay, so what's really going on out there? What is really going on? Now, since 2020, a lot of us were fortunately in a position where we had a lot more time to start researching and questioning things, and a lot of us woke up and there was a thing called, let me just share this again, guys, this that came out. Okay, now some of you folks may never have even heard of this, and I'm going to introduce you to it. Others may have heard of it, maybe even looked at some of this stuff, and then for whatever reason you dismissed it and moved away. I followed this since day dot, really. And for me personally, it's absolutely real. Now, it is a psyop, but it's a psyop from a positive point of view, because everything's a psyop. If you're waking up humanity to certain things playing out, and we were all programmed, which we were, and largely still are in some cases, then you do need a psyop to break the cognitive dissonance so that people start asking questions. And that is essentially the purpose of this military thing, shall we say. Okay, now I just want to touch on something quick, and then I'm going to join this up into military law, and then I'm going to dovetail it into certain proof points, some very recent proof points. Then I want to bring it into the financial system and just end it there, because there's a lot of FUD about CBDCs and they're taking the cash away and we're all doomed, and digital IDs, because all of that stuff, guys, is nonsense. And I'm going to show you some facts to counteract that narrative too.
Well, if you can do that, that will rest a lot of people's minds, because I think the digital IDs, the CBDCs, the missing of cash is at the moment foremost on a lot of people's minds, and they're worrying what to do. If you've got savings or anything like that, people are thinking, what the hell am I going to do? They don't want the government just to make it evaporate. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for me, this is where I kind of like planted my flag, because to keep my own mind and not go crazy with what was playing out, I wanted to validate what I knew I could factually confirm with research, which was the military side of it and then the financial side of it. Yeah.
and these are things that we can prove. So what I want to just show you right now is this is called this letter here, drop. And there are many of them, and I'm going to show you a lot more in a second. But I want to just touch on this one here, because there is a media narrative to discredit this whole thing.
Yes,
And a lot of people have fallen for it.
Yeah, and people have said to me about stuff that I've said, oh, you've been reading one of those drops, and you know, Richard, don't you know that this is all nonsense? And I try to keep an open mind, but even when what seems to be your own side is telling you these things, you think, oh, maybe they've got a point then, and you know, so it's like I'm learning a lot here.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because even people on our side, you know, say these things, and it's easy to get misled and misdirected. And
yeah,
one of the things I would say to anybody that's hearing that is just make your own mind up. Just spend some time digging into this. Everyone that I've said that says that to me, I always ask the question, have you actually gone on the site and actually gone through any of the drops in detail?
Yeah.
Never. They're watching YouTube videos and other things, and they're forming opinions of that, which you can do, but there's a lack of depth, right? So this is one of these drops you can see from this year here, and the media have labeled it this.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's the same sort of thing to dismiss. Oh, that's just that thing. And straight away, everything you're saying, whilst factual and true, is now dismissed as some quirky sort of, you know, far right, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
And this is just the truth of it. And I'm just going to just show you this. I'll read it out. You know, there are anons. There is no that. Media labeling as that is a method deliberate to combine, attach that to comments, theories, suggestions, statements, and actions made by two. What happens when you cannot attack the information, the primary source? Do you attack and typecast through use of others? Not all are authentic. They are injected. So this kind of reaffirms my point. There are people in this movement that are there as inserts to misdirect us. And this is why it's so important. We've just got to trust our own judgment, our own intuition. This is what this whole moment's about. It's about us standing in our power and making our own bloody decisions, and not listening to external influence. And that includes me on here right now. You know, I'm not saying this is it. I'm saying I'm sharing some information that will run contrary to what you may understand to be true. Have a look at it. Make your own mind up.
Yeah.
But the main point is this, is that it's real, right? I mean, this is what they do. This is all the psyop stuff that they sort of go through. So what I want to do now, let me just get that down there. And I'm just going to go through what I was talking about, whereby in a situation then where there is that stuff that happened in 2020 and the military law kicks into play, well, how do we confirm all of this? How do we really dig into it? And that's what I just want to start with. And I'll kind of walk through from there. So let me just screen share again, and we'll get back to the beginning. So this site here houses all of these drops, and these are the last ones that were there, but I can give you you can show how it works. It asks questions. It doesn't give you answers. It forces you to think, and it forces you to do some research. And in doing that research, you find crumbs. And whilst that crumb in itself may not tell you everything you need to know, you know that you personally have verified that crumb to be factually correct. And when you keep doing it, you get more and more crumbs, and then you can join the dots, and then you have a picture. And that's how it works. And by forming that picture, you break your own cognitive dissonance and programming. And that's where you can start standing in your power, because you know it's true, because you did the work. You validated it for yourself. And this is how it works. So, I mean, this is really relevant to right now. What are we going through right now? You know, look at this stuff here. Who are the silent thieves? Why are they manipulating you? I won't say it word for word, but you can see what it is. So have a dig into this, folks, because there's so much information in here. This is all very relevant.
Who's behind? I mean, who's behind it? Is this like a forum that people join and can add stuff to, so that anybody can add stuff to, or is it more exclusive than that?
It's not exclusive. It's just there. It's a thing. There's no group. There's no movement. It's just here. There are questions. You find the truth. That's really as simple as it is.
Right.
It is military. It's so deep because I'm going to show you. I mean, it's not just about these drops with questions. There are decodes. You know, this thing started in 2017, and you've got a lot of historical drops that are very relevant to today.
Right.
So one of the, and in fact, I'll just jump into this quickly just to explain it.
Yeah.
This is a website that explains how this whole thing works. And I'm just going to show you some very simple proof points. So whenever this chap here communicates, I don't know if anyone's ever watched the speech, and sometimes the words don't quite make sense. It's not quite strung together well enough. I don't know if you notice that. You think, what's he saying? Well, the reason that happens is there's two messages. There's the message that's going out, then there's the message.
Right, the real message.
Now, this guy here is absolutely, and I'm going to show you some things behind that whole operation. And I'm not saying it's him on his own, because there's obviously a massive military apparatus behind that too, which I'm going to show you. But this is a very simple proof point to just show you what I'm talking about. Here is one of those drops, and you can see the date and the time that this was actually put out.
Yeah, so that's in 2017, if you can't read it.
Yeah, and then you've got this here. I won't read that out.
No.
But word for word is repeated here by the man himself. But look at the timestamp here, and then the date. Look at the date and the timestamp here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see. So how much difference is there? I can't quite.
This was put out first.
Yeah.
On the internet, on a Chan board, they put them up, 4chan and 8chan. And then this is a tweet, word for word, the exact same. And it came out afterwards on the same day.
Yeah.
That's a very obvious, simple com. Okay. I'll show you another one. No, that's not the one we want. Here we go. This was another one. So back in the day, some people said, can you give us some more proof points? And this platform came back and said, well, what do you want? And some people said, insert this into one of your speeches. Okay, so that's a very specific wordplay.
Yes.
That isn't just going to just come out of that guy's mouth by accident.
No.
Okay. So what you can then do is, and I've just put these up on YouTube because they're all there, plenty of them. If you just search for this, plenty of mainstream media articles, listen to what he says, and that's in there specifically.
And it's in there. Oh, right.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that he does a lot, when you do watch his speeches, he does a lot of this. He does a lot of air symbols.
Right.
And he's referencing this. So he might make a communication that is relevant to one of those drops, and he'll do an air quote as well. So you know what he's talking about. Those that are following this stuff know what he's talking about.
Yes. So
if you followed this over the last few years, there's a very different narrative being presented to the one that's being presented. Okay.
And just to interject there, because we know that the bad guys, they love to tell us what they're doing through movies, through symbolism, and so on. And they're constantly sort of, telling us what's going to happen, and they're using that sort of thing. So in a way, this is also on the other side of the coin, using a similar technique, but not as bleeding obvious as the others. I mean, once you've twigged into the others are advertising UFO attacks and wildfires and this, that, and the other in various films, or transhumanism in films from 20 years ago, you start to see the dots. Whereas this is slightly different, but it's a way of talking to people in code.
Exactly. And this is as you're saying that, this is the method that they're using. This is exactly how it works.
Oh, right. Okay.
Socratic questioning.
Socratic questioning. What does Socratic mean?
I have no idea what that actually means, but I just know that's the method.
That's the method. Yeah, right. Fair enough.
I've done a lot on the side. I've done a lot of research, reading, education of myself and psychology.
Yeah.
And this is how this stuff works. It's a really effective way of breaking through cognitive dissonance by asking questions that force the brain to think about the answer.
So I've just looked that up. Socratic is relating to Socrates and his philosophy. So I'm not quite sure what his philosophy was, because that's beyond my education, I'm afraid.
Me too. So just to cap that bit off, there are lots of different communications, and a lot of the older drops are playing out right now. So what you have are what are called 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year deltas
Wow.
that specifically match news that's playing out now in the mainstream. And what this platform says actually, and I wonder if I can see it here. I'll see if I can just search it out for you live. How many coincidence? Hang on, let me just try and. Sorry, I have to coincidence. That didn't come out right too well, did it? Coincidence. Come on. Coincidence.
It's always good when you're filming live and
live and it
you're
doesn't
being
work.
watched and you're going, hang on a minute, I can't remember how you spell it.
What the platform says is how many coincidences until it's mathematically impossible.
Right.
And when you spend any time looking at this and just getting into it, you will find that it is mathematically impossible. The number of connections to that from mainstream stuff, it just points a very different picture to what's actually playing out.
Yeah.
So this is here. I'll share this with you guys so you can all dig into it. You'll see a lot of news articles with this letter.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is UK based as well, right?
Right.
Read the headlines and notice how many times this number is there. There were 17 deaths. There were 17 this and 17, 17, 17, 17. It's a com. And what they're showing is the military are communicating with us to show that either that's a complete load of rubbish, or you see a lot of police raids right now for paedophilia and stuff like that.
Right.
And they might say 17 people were arrested or whatever. You're getting a communication as to who's really behind this stuff, what's really going on.
Right. So that's kind of like their little symbol.
Yes, there's so much of it. It goes very deep. But what I wanted to do when I want to focus on the military stuff, so I won't go too deep into that. You guys can obviously look into this for yourself. So back to this right now.
It's another rabbit hole for us all to go and explore.
So much. There is so much. Now I've just screenshotted a few of these to just show people. Okay, so this says this. Now we kind of know broadly, haven't we? There's been a narrative that we're going to get some sort of blackout coming.
Yes.
Right, an internet blackout, whatever it may be. Okay, well, this is also reaffirmed here, and you can see this particular one, what it says, but it has this sort of 11.4 reference. But this 11.4 reference comes up quite a lot of different times. It's here again in this drop, 11.3 here, 11.3 here. There are lots and lots of drops with that reference. And look at this one. Think about it logically. The only way is fully controlled once that verifies as the first marker. Biggest advanced drop. This is on population. Okay. Now, what does this mean? So, in fact, let me just read this out as well, because this is very relevant to what's about to start playing out over there. Over there will be the first domino to go.
Right.
And then every other country is going to go in unison with it, because we have a global alliance playing out right now. Remember, what happened in 2020 was an overt act of war. We are already in World War III. It's just it's a fifth generation war. It's not the conventional type, but we are in it. We're living it. And so this is playing out. So I won't kind of go through all of this, but this bit here, certain fail-safes will safeguard the public from the primary fallout slated to occur 11.3 upon the arrest announcement of this guy, actual 11.4. If you're following US media and you just put a Google in, this guy has all of a sudden, for being nowhere for the last few years, is now being inserted back into the press. He's now being put back into the spotlight ahead of what's about to occur. If you look at all of the D-run cities in America, you will find that there is an overt, this word here, on the street. National Guard vehicles, etc. They're getting ready for this moment in time.
And somebody sent me a video on, I think, it was on TikTok, but somebody sent it to me, and it had this military vehicle going through, and they said, this is really weird. We've just had all these people come through. And they were sort of going, what's this all about? And so people are sort of noticing, but not but not knowing why. And it's not sort of over, you know, it's not like they've shut down towns or anything. They've just seen these things
They're
going
just
through.
there.
Yeah. Like
And that's
mysteriously on the
that
move.
sort of, it's that classic sort of human condition where there's an anomaly and you don't know the answer, and it's kind of like, oh well, and you just get back on with your life, don't you?
Yeah, because they're
and
not
you get used
firing
to
at
it.
you, or they're not sort of stopping you, and nobody's dropping bombs on you, and you just think, oh, okay, they must be
They're
on
just there.
maneuvers.
Yeah, world's messed up, so it's part of that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
then you carry on. But there are reasons for this stuff happening. So remember, I was referencing their 11.3, 11.4. You know, for a long time, nobody really knew what they were. They thought they were dates for events or whatever it may be.
right.
And so very smart people worked out the connection. So what I'm showing you right now can be downloaded from the United States government, and you can see here,
Yeah,
DoD Defense website. And this is this.
right.
Okay. Now, this was updated just before Mr. T came into power. And I've read this. I've gone through this quite a lot, actually, because there's a lot to it. There's so many rabbit holes to follow with this one. But what you will get if you do go through this is there's no way that you can come away from that and not accept that there is a military alliance at play. And in fact, this update, it contains the various nations that are part of that alliance, and specific to their involvement in this international thing. It's been updated with their law of war manuals.
Right. Okay.
So it's all in here. Now I'm going to, excuse me while I just go through this. There's a lot in it. Now I'm just going to get to the juicy bit that we
oh yeah, I can see
this
that
is
400 odd pages there.
this is the part that's about to happen. And then we can
God,
start getting a
600,
little bit
700.
excited.
You have been busy. If you've been reading all of this, you've obviously not had much sleep.
When I got obsessed with it because it was like, you know, when you know the truth of the bad plan.
Yes.
For me, it was a case of, you know, I've got kids and stuff. Like, what on earth are we doing? Am I running for the hills? Like, what have I got to do?
Yeah.
And it was my partner that wasn't quite on the same page that kind of forced me to be a little bit more rational and calm. And that's when I just started thinking, right, there must be some good guys. Where would they be?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of took me to the military. And that's how I led into that letter. And it's just kind of gone from there. But once you kind of get the bit between your teeth, it's very hard to put it down, you know, very hard to let this thing go. Right, here we go. So 11.3. Ta-da!
End
it is
of.
a specific section. So end of occupation. Well, what is occupied? Now, I'm just going to jump here quickly to show folks. This lady has twice been on UK mainstream news, GB News specifically. She is part of the Department of Defense, and she's part of a task force. And some of your viewers may have already seen this video, but if not, go onto Twitter. You can find it. You can find both the videos. Now, what she has done is confirmed everything I'm about to show you, but she went a bit deeper with it.
Right.
This stuff's real, and they're now framing this on the mainstream. So, you know, when it's coming out on the mainstream and it's counter to the narrative we've been used to, you kind of know that there's a purpose to that. They're not just doing it by chance. You just haven't just happened to just rock up on GB News to say some stuff. There's a purpose behind
Ofcom
it.
wouldn't permit it, and the government, you know, behind Ofcom wouldn't permit it if it wasn't permissible.
Exactly. And what's more interesting is Mr. T himself has shared the video.
Right.
So you've got an absolute validation that what she's saying is correct because he's sharing it everywhere. So this thing has hit multiple millions globally now. But if we go back to this, and if you look into that video, what she confirms and what we may already know is that London City is a separate city-state, right? Which are you aware of that yourself?
Yeah,
Richard?
yeah. That's sold. I mean, the Crown and everything was sold in the 1930s.
Exactly.
You know, to the City of London. I've spoken about this on the channel.
Brilliant. And that connects into Vatican City.
Yep.
Which connects into Washington, D.C.
Right.
So what's occupied?
So yeah, so it's
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was a thing that happened in 2020, and we know everything is a corporation. All countries are corporations. There are no sovereign nations at the moment. The over there on that side, it is going to become one of the first sovereign nations. They have got their constitution back.
So when you just said the first pillar is going, that's not, oh my God, that's a terrible thing. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah, 100% a good thing. Because again, a military alliance. What's got to happen then if we know that, if we just bring it back to us over here, we already know that we have an illegitimate bunch in Parliament. We
Yes.
already know that we don't have a legitimate monarchy. Do we honestly think that, given what's actually playing out on a world stage right now and the proof points I'm showing you here, that our military don't know this stuff too?
Mm.
That they're just deciding to turn a blind eye to everything while everything else in the world is playing out and the military doing their thing, but over here they say, "Oh, we'll just leave that. Don't worry about it. We'll crack on as we are."
Because
Like,
they're all, I mean, this is the thing that's always sort of confused me, is that the military would turn on its own people, and yet its own people are the mums and dads, brothers and sisters of the men and women in the military, not just the working men and women, but the planners, the designers, the people in the higher tiers. Why would they allow anything like that to ruin their family, family and friends, relations, and the history that they've stood for and fought for?
exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly it. There are more of us that are, not even awake, but there are more good in the world than there are bad in the world, right? So you've got
Yes.
to have a bit of faith in humanity. But so this is referring to that bankrupt corporation that's over there. And it sets out the legal parameters as to what that end of the occupation needs to look like, what has to happen. And it also sets out the obligations for the occupying party, which is the bad guys, essentially, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
If we then go further forward, and this is where this is the moment everything kicks off. There's 11 Follett, which is also
Yeah.
referenced legal position. So this kind of outlines the legal position, and it confirms what has to happen to remove them, which is why that little letter confirms that the military is the only way. This can't happen from a civilian perspective. Now, why? Even here in the UK, let's just bring this back to council tax and the fights we're having. These courts have been subverted. We are in tyranny. It should not be that we have to re-educate the court system as to how things are meant to work. It should not be that we have a scenario where we're looking for justice in the system and we go to a court and we've got an absolutely watertight case and argument, and they just ignore that and carry on and do what they do, right? It's subverted. And so we already know that to fix this problem, you're not going to use civilian courts to do it. They're gone. This is why it has to go to a higher jurisdiction, hence the military. And again, over here, we can prove in any wartime situation, that is the jurisdiction that reigns supreme. So whilst there's nothing specifically proving that for the UK, I think we have enough crumbs to join the dots to paint a picture that at least rationally say something's got to be at play, right? They can't just have forgotten about it.
No.
So if your watchers here want to go through this stuff, promise you'll get a very different picture as to what's really happening globally. Now, the other thing, if you go back to even when 2017, and you just do a simple Google search for military operations since then, and you dig into those operations, you've got the narrative as to what they were about, but then you've got the real reason and purpose for what they were about. Never in a moment of time, a period of time, have there been as many or as big, that's the wrong English, but as operations, military operations, as there is right now. And on the 20th of this month, in fact, this was yesterday, one of the largest maritime exercises has started globally. And the US Marines are part of that, who incidentally have been federalized and have the power to make arrests internationally. What do we know that's about to happen? So if I just go back to this little drop here, excuse me again, I'll just get it back on. Sorry about all the jumping back and forth, guys. It's
No,
the
you
way I
have
have to
us
put
on
this
the edge
together.
of our seats, Gavin.
So this drop here, really worth reading, but look at this little bit here. To conduct these operations at home and abroad.
Yes.
What's being positioned right now for this stuff to happen? Okay. So it's all there. It's very easy to join it up at this point because we have a lot of, historical precedent now to confirm everything. But let me just get back into this bit here. So hopefully what I've shown folks is that there is another side to this. It's all factual, it's all provable, and when you get into it, you'll form a very different picture. But I just want to bring this further forward and bring it into the financial system. So what is it that's really playing out? It's a concept called game theory. Now, if we think about what's been happening in the last few years and all these bad things are going. And actually, let's bring this into like the monetary system, because we can talk a little bit freer about that.
Right.
So right now, it's like, you know, there's a lot of these projects, or for want of a better word, of like, we must save our cash. We must stop them taking our cash.
Yeah.
Well, let's put a game theory to this, right?
Okay.
If you are the good guys and you require similar events to happen, because again, at a high level, just simplify it, we have been living in a very evil system that has enslaved us.
Yes.
And by default, if there were good guys, you would want the whole thing to come crashing down so as to bring in a good system, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
Right. So game theory basically confirms that if you're the good guys, you would allow the bad guys to execute part of their plan, because it actually aids your end as well. It aids what you want to happen. But in the process, that's waking people up. That's getting people aware that something negative is afoot, what's actually going on. So actually, under game theory, doing it that way helps you.
So are you saying, are you saying, I mean, you could go right back to the pandemic that we had. That was, we kind of, I mean, whether we allowed it to happen or not, but it did wake a lot of people up. And now that those people are sort of recovering from that, and you're saying, oh, you're going to lose your money in the bank, we're going to swap to this new digital system. You're saying that that's sort of also then adding more to the, oh, blimey, I'm not sure I want that. So that they are beginning to question everything.
To push back. Like, why are you taking my cash away? That's going to stop this, this, and this. But what's going on? So people are standing up. And we know this now. There's so many people making their stand. And it's not because they're necessarily awake. They just know there's something really wrong going on.
Yeah.
And as a point of principle, we need to make a stand. This is the point of it. So game theory is exactly what is being used. It's a psychological play globally. So let's just carry on sort of moving with that, with the cash thing. So again, rational thought. If there is going to be a collapse of the financial system, which is absolutely going to happen, and this fiat currency that we've been made to believe is real money is going away, then you have to get rid of the cash, don't you? Because it's not going to be, you can't spend it in the new system. So wouldn't it be better to use the nefarious agenda to remove that than... Do you see what I'm trying to say? It makes sense that that would happen that way, because the good guys require the same thing to happen anyway, ahead of the events that need to play out.
Yes, I suppose. I mean, I suppose listeners to this will be thinking, yeah, that's a huge gamble, because at least if they've got a big bag of money they've got out of the bank, they feel that there is some element of freedom, and nobody is poking their nose into what they do with the money. But if it turns out that that bag of paper is just a bag of paper, all you can do is put it on the fire to keep warm.
And that's the point, isn't it? Because it is just a bag of paper. I mean, again, I haven't prepared this in here, and again, guys, you can absolutely verify this as being true. But do you remember last year when was it Liz Truss came in as PM for like 2 minutes? She wasn't there very long. She did a few things that basically it started to collapse the pound, and it brought it to very close to parity with the dollar. And the Bank of England had to step in. Now, what a lot of folks don't realise with that is that the UK was within spitting distance of collapsing at that point. And had the Bank of England not stepped in to buy those treasury bonds, it would have happened. But what are they buying? They're worthless. We are at a point in time in the UK alone where our debt outstrips GDP, and it's getting worse. Now, we don't have to be Einstein to work out that is not a sustainable situation.
No.
Right? And it's worse for the fact that the bonds that the Bank of England are printing money to buy are worthless. So that's like a house of cards, and it's only waiting for some little event to go and blow it, right? So the point is like, why are we getting so freaked out about the loss of cash? It's worthless. It needs to go anyway. But it doesn't necessarily mean there won't be any cash on the other side of that in a new system. The cash we have now, being worthless and not money, can't be used in a system that is using real digital money, backed by assets, backed by gold, backed by silver, backed by whatever asset it may be. That's what's coming. So it has to go. So what I'm trying to say to folks is like, step back from that energy and the FUD that's being promoted, and just look at it from a different perspective. That now you know there's a military alliance. Now you know, because you can confirm it, that that's happening. Doesn't it make sense that there would be a counterplay to what's actually playing out? Because if you are the good guys and you're taking this stuff down, then you're going to need a financial system, aren't you?
Yeah, you couldn't survive without
You
some.
couldn't survive. So the
No.
question then is, well, what is that system? Because there's a lot of talk about these CBDCs coming in.
Mm.
Again, let's just use a bit of like rational thought about this, because a lot of people that I speak to aren't aware of the BRICS nations and what's actually going on there, right? So tomorrow is the start of their summit, an annual summit. And there's been a lot of fanfare about this. And actually, you can confirm a lot of this stuff online, but I just want to keep it really simple. They are already trading outside of the dollar. They're settling and buying oil directly without the dollar. We have a situation where the dollar is no longer really a reserve currency. It's already, but it's just not widely accepted. And once that is widely accepted, it's going to go boom. The BRICS nations have already said they will be announcing in this summit their gold-backed currency for settlement. That's the end of the dollar.
Right.
That's the boom moment. So you have real digital money with worthless money that's collapsing. Do we think that, let's just call it the West or keep it to the UK? The UK doesn't make anything anymore.
No.
We have to import everything. And a lot of that import is coming from nations outside of the EU and outside of the West. Do we honestly believe that any of those nations with gold-backed or asset-backed currency are going to accept worthless collapsing fiat for trade? No.
No.
So
I mean, will people be able to? Can we change? I mean, if if you've got people who've got savings, will they be able to swap it for this new currency?
So I don't know the depths of how that will play out.
No.
I would suggest that we're going to at some point, but initially it's going to be a little bit scary because we are going to go through the CBDC debacle, and it's for us, the people, to say no to that. And that's going to happen when, I think, one of the big wake ups is going to be when people realize that this whole monetary system's a lie. That there was never any money, and this thing they thought they had in the bank that was theirs actually isn't theirs, and that whole thing's got to play out, and the CBDC thing's got to come in to fail, and that will be the final death throes of it. But we will be going gold backed, and again, if you do any research on this stuff, it's already set up, it's all there, it's all confirmed.
Yeah.
So you've got the narrative, and then you've got the reality, and they don't marry. So if I just bring this back here, and I'm just going to, so that was that lady there. What she confirms is the end of this act.
Yeah.
Now, this basically is what enabled the crown to enslave the world. This is what made America a vassal state to the crown, a British colony. The end of that act, and again, this is confirmed by her and re-truthed by Trump, is the reason all of these Commonwealth countries are now saying up yours to the monarchy. We can see the world is changing. Now, that's not a negative thing. That's a positive thing because the crown doesn't have that control anymore. So this is really happening behind the scenes. Okay. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you guys. Here you go. It's in here. Gold will destroy the Fed. Now, let's just point at this, right? Who's really controlling this collapse? This is the question.
Yeah.
Now, I knew that I just found this on a LinkedIn. This is true. There's a lot of articles proving this stuff, guys, but this has happened. The Fed Reserve was rolled into the United States Treasury when Mr. T was still there. Given that Mr. T is still the commander-in-chief, who's really in control? How do you take a privately owned central bank? We all know the truth of all of that.
Yes.
Remove all of those people that have got absolute control of this world and then merge it with the treasury. What's the real purpose here? How does it even happen? It's showing you something that these so-called people in control clearly aren't in control. It's no longer a privately owned bank. It's part of the treasury, which means that there's certain other people maybe pulling the strings or controlling the other people that are pulling the strings. Now, if we look back at where the Fed Reserve has raised their rates, as an example, it doesn't take much to understand that the moves that they made run counter to the moves they should have made in that situation. It's putting more and more pressure on other countries, as an example, every time that they do that. So it's fast tracking the collapse, but in a controlled manner. So this is a rabbit hole to go down, guys. That you get into that again, you're going to form a very different narrative. So
Yes.
if you're controlling the world's #1 central bank, it shows you that the central banks are no longer really controlled by the bad guys. How can they roll out a CBDC that's going to enslave humanity? right? If everything is got its foundation from this financial system, and this financial system enables everything bad that's been going on, but it enables these corporations, it's all collapsing, isn't it? You pull the rug and the whole thing's got to come down. So if we then go into, I just want to just point a few other things out here to just kind of bring it into bricks and really what that's truly going on there.
Right.
So this guy here is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
He is now on the record as formally applying to become a member of BRICS. The dollar, if you remember when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in the 70s, part of the deal was with Saudi Arabia that we'll give you military support if you buy oil in the dollar. This is what made it the reserve currency, then kind of backed it in a way because it's being backed by Saudi oil. This country now is saying, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go into the BRICS alliance. They're on record now. I haven't put it up here, but they're confirming that they want to be funding it. That's a huge move. Okay, so Saudi Arabia is coming away from the dollar. Like, again, just understand, you can't have bad CBDCs if you do not have the bad guys having a financial system. The whole thing is collapsing as we talk right now. So this guy here, back in I can't remember what it was, but there was remember that some shooting in Las Vegas.
Oh yes,
a few years back, right?
Yep.
What was really going on is this was an assassination attempt of this guy because he was there meeting Mr. T. And after that happened, coincidentally, where are we? I think it's this one here. Trump was given as part of his world tour, or shouldn't have said that, but we'll see. Mr. T was given as part of his world tour. The highest honor that they can actually give anybody is this sword dance. It's actually reserved for kings. No sitting president ever has received that honor, and yet he got that honor.
Gosh.
After that stuff happened.
Right.
But this is a guy that's joining the BRICS alliance.
Yeah.
But this other guy here is commander-in-chief of the US, which has this dollar that's a reserve currency. So we're pointing to a few factual anomalies here in that narrative, aren't we? Because if this guy is still that, commander-in-chief of the dollar, why is he aiding its end? Well, we know the truth. We understand what's really playing out. So there's something obviously very different. Now, you can go on YouTube for this. Like, if you look at Trump's world tour,
Mr. T.
Mr. T, sorry, you might just edit that out.
No, don't worry.
You'll see other countries gave equally as high honor. And when he went to China, Mr. Z gave him the highest honor that they could give. It never happened before. Yet this is meant to be the Communist Party that wants to take over the world.
Yes.
So I haven't put it here, but I want to give a few other little facts that we can confirm. Mr. Z was on the receiving end of a coup attempt last year, and it failed. And this was the bad guys having their last throw of the dice to get the guy removed because of what he's doing, which is not supportive of the bad guys doing what they want to do.
Right.
And again, you can get this video on YouTube. About a week after that failed, he had his number 2 man literally removed on live TV to send a message to the world that you failed. I'm in control. And you can see the guy's resisting because he knows exactly what's going to happen to him, and he's trying everything he can to not go. But eventually, they remove him from this audience live on live TV.
Wow,
so
that's good.
In these drops, you can search it for yourself. It confirms that these guys are working together.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just move it off of there. We've gone into that. We've gone into that. So this guy's a very big part of. Oh, that's what I was going to show you. These are the drops about that Las Vegas thing.
Oh yeah.
It's all here. You follow that and you'll get into a lot of it. So let's just go into the BRICS stuff now. This is all online now. This is all like Google. We can find this stuff out, right? So the BRICS Alliance, this is our new financial system. This is the platform that is going to create the multipolar world. This is going to bring back true sovereignty to our countries where there is no reserve dollar. In fact, what we're going to get is a neutral reserve asset. And I'll explain what that's going to be in a second. Well, let's actually go into that right now. New system. Okay, so we're establishing right now that the CBDC that we think is bad that's coming, it can't work. It's destined to fail. But it doesn't necessarily mean initially that CBDCs won't be around. It's kind of like they're good and bad. It depends on whose hands they're in.
Right.
Right. But if you have let's just say it's a gold-backed CBDC, and you're going into this blockchain technology. So I'm not going to get too technical with that, but
No.
blockchain enables full transparency. You can't hide. By impossibility with that situation, with a gold-backed currency, you have full transparency that makes it impossible to commit criminal acts. You can't do money laundering. You can't do all the bad stuff that's being enabled by the current system. This is the system that is being rolled out. So the CBDCs initially will be asset-backed. I don't know this for definite yet. I've got crumbs, but I haven't got enough crumbs to confirm it. But I believe what's going to happen, and it will start again in the United States, is that there will be Supreme Court precedent to rule central banks unconstitutional. And that will then roll out globally, because ultimately we don't need them. Right. And if we look to Musk, X.com, and what that guy's building, so I'm going off on tangents here, but I didn't plan on saying this, but I might as well bring it in. So Elon bought Twitter at a time when the bad guys were fully in control to bring free speech to the world. Do we honestly think that that would have been enabled had the bad guys really been in control? Like, how would he have bought this platform that was their kind of like the town square? It's like a major platform to control a negative narrative. Yet that happened. Well, what we can also confirm behind the scenes, and I've personally done this research, is the Department of Defense funds a lot of Elon Musk companies. And there's been a big funder of SpaceX and the Starlink satellite system that's now up there, which essentially is going to be the new internet. Because this internet's got to collapse, right? New internet,
yeah,
quantum, all that good stuff, unhackable, uncorruptible, all of that good stuff's coming in. Now,
as long as it's safe, because I've been reading a book about bloody radiation and stuff, and that's a big problem. But anyway,
that bit I can't comment on. I couldn't say that. But I guess what I'm trying to say, again, you can find this stuff on YouTube, guys. Mr. Musk is on record as saying, back in the PayPal days, you got the PayPal mafia, the main people like Peter Thiel's a guy that started it with them. He then went in and created Ripple, went and started the Stellar network. All these people are still in it. And Elon Musk is on record as saying he had a business plan to create the world's most valuable financial company to upend the financial system. And he was stopped. I think we can guess why that was stopped. But now he's saying that he started it again. He's rolling it out. Twitter's now called X.com. Twitter has set up a payment company. X.com is going to become the app for everything. And part of that is banking and finance. We are going to be the banks. It's going to enable payment, peer-to-peer payments, which means you don't need middlemen like the banks. So this whole thing is playing out right now. And none of it points to this dystopian controlled future and financial system that is for them and not for us. It points to freedom. Okay, so let's just point to this. This company here, a lot of you guys may have already been aware of, maybe not. I'm just going to introduce it to you because I think we have an opportunity for a once-in-a-lifetime scenario where you have the biggest transfer of wealth ever about to happen. A dying system collapsing. Where does that go? It's going to go into the new system. And if you're aware of what's actually happening, we have an opportunity to ride a tidal wave into that system and change our lives, right? So you mentioned about folks that have got, cash in the bank and not too sure what to do with it. I am not giving anybody financial advice here at all. I'm just simply saying, go look and see what you can find out. But we already know that the system's collapsing. We already know that the money in the bank is not yours and it's worthless. And we also know that silver and gold, as an example, are stores of value. We know that the prices of those two are suppressed quite heavily. And we also know that the bricks are going to be asset backed. So it doesn't take much to work out that they're going to boom in price when all is said and done. So if you have cash in the bank and you're wondering what to do, you might want to look at maybe buying some gold and silver to protect yourself and then make a nice healthy return when the collapse actually happens. If you want to go further with that, you might want to look into the new system and understand how that's working and understand digital tokens and how they're going to work. Now, this company here has been in a sham lawsuit with the SEC for a couple of years. Anybody out there following it will know it's a sham. It's been there to slow them down from rolling out what they're rolling out so they could try and create a copy of it, and they've failed. So here, this is it. This is the core of the new system. And what they've created is this little token here called XRP. Now, XRP, the great thing about this now, Richard, is it's all on bloody Google.
Yes.
When I was looking at this stuff back in 2020, None of this stuff was out here like this. But now it's getting to such a point that, there you go, acts as a bridge currency to increase the speed and reduce the cost of cross-border transactions. What's a bridge currency? So simple terms, if I'm paying you, I've got pounds, I'm in the UK, you're in America and in dollars. But bearing in mind that everything's going to be a level playing field, you won't have currency conversion anymore. Well, I can just pay you in pounds and you're going to receive it in dollars. What bridges the transaction is XRP.
Right. Okay.
Imagine all of the wealth running through that token. You can't have a cheap token. Now, I'm just going to set a picture here for folks. There's 100 billion XRP in existence. There will never be any more. It's a deflationary asset. Inflation is impossible with this asset. Okay. Now, what that means, every time a transaction happens, is a small percentage is burnt, which makes it deflationary. But because there's 100 billion in existence and there'll never be any more, and this thing is going to bridge all of these transactions, and by the way, it's way bigger than just transactions, but I don't want to bore everyone to death, then you've got to understand that all these institutions have to hold it. They have to hold a certain amount for their settlements, because that's what it's designed for. So you've got the current banks, you've got all these financial institutions. Well, 50 billion is already allocated in an escrow account. There are contracts already drawn up for that, NDAs. We are finding out right now they've partnered with Barclays, MasterCard, Visa, Amazon. I mean, if you actually dig into this, they're partnered with bloody everybody. Okay, this is setting the scene for what's happening. Now, because they're partnered with everybody and you've got 50 billion in escrow, there's a certain proportion left on the retail market. About 3 or so weeks ago, they had a major win in this lawsuit with the SEC, and it was confirmed that XRP is not a security. This means that the exchanges can now relist it for purchase. And this is why I'm sharing this information to the good folks out there. You have a token that's around 50 pence right now. 100 billion in existence. All of these institutions have got to hold it. That can't be cheap. How many trillions currently are transacted every day? We're going into a quantum world as well. So we can't even look at what we have today as what the future is going to hold. So we're going into a system that's going to go into the quadrillions and more every day. Understand the price of this thing it can't be cheap. So it doesn't take a rocket science to work out, if you invest in a certain proportion of that, when this thing's all played out, you're going to be in a very different situation on the other side. And that's why I wanted to bring it in. So if you do your research on this, guys, and you can look into it, you'll see blockchain, asset-backed, decentralized. This is going to be a neutral bridge asset and a neutral reserve currency. It's liquid gold. We just don't know it yet.
Okay.
It all exists behind the scenes.
There's a lot to take in here, Gavin. So I mean, I'm hoping people are staying with us. I mean, I'm sort of like, hold on a minute. I'm used to one thought at a time. And you've clearly sort of looked at this over a long period of time and started to join all these dots, and you're obviously very excited about it, which is infectious, which I'm pleased to see. So what sort of time scale are we looking at, do you think?
One of those $1 million. I mean, I've been, every single prediction I've made has been wrong. So, but the funny thing is when you make the prediction and it doesn't happen, you kind of learn why and what was missing. And so we are close. I mean, the BRICS nation starts tomorrow. They are going to make that announcement. That is going to kill the dollar. How quick that happens, I don't know. Whether they bring in some sort of black swan event, which is the narrative. I know there is something that they've gamed out called ICE 9, which you can Google again. It's there. It's proven. And ICE 9 is where they have a liquidity freeze. So the event that's going to kind of kick off everything happening, it's a liquidity problem. And so if we kind of use an analogy, like if the financial system is like an engine, a car engine, and liquidity is the oil's about to run out. And we all know if you're in an engine that's running and the oil's gone, it's going to blow. That's what's going to happen. ICE 9 freezes everything. This is that moment where you wake up, or we're all going to wake up, and it's going to be, I can't access my cash. I can't spend anything. It's like literally grinds to a halt. Imagine the chaos that's going to ensue from there. Now, what is it those higher ups like to say? Out of chaos comes order. It works both ways. You know, it's a play. We're all, I mean, good or bad, it doesn't matter. We're all still being moved in a certain direction. We are being herded in a direction. What I'm trying to say to folks is that it's not bad.
Right. Yes, and
The outcome
that's
of that's
yeah.
positive for us.
And that, I mean, it's very difficult to get into that mindset that it's not bad, because we've been groomed for so long, and especially we've been looking, you know, those people who are awake and what have you have been looking in this direction at and going through everything and going, is this another bloody psyop? Is this a red flag event? Is this, you know, here's a fire in Maui and here's another UFO story and all of this, and we're sort of, but we're not really paying much attention to what's going on over here, which is just news stuff, and kind of going, oh, that's interesting. He's back on the scene. Oh, what's he doing? But actually, that's really important.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I'll go back here. Just one little thing I'll show you to finish this off.
Yeah.
And I know it's potentially not nice when they say this, but you know, we are in a wake up phase. We are in a transitional phase into something completely different. We know the world is being reset. So watching a movie, let's just see if this comes up. There we go. You are watching a movie. They want you weak, slave, sheep, distraction. Just fits into what you just said there.
Yeah.
We are, it's a real life movie, like theatre show. And we're being led, you know, in a certain direction. And again, people might not feel comfortable with that, saying, well, hang on, why it's not right that we're being led. But think about it, like 7 billion odd people on the planet. You know, you can't just leave it to us to just work it all out. We've got to be led in a certain direction, surely, you know?
Yeah. Otherwise, it is anarchy
It would
and
be
chaos.
anarchy. Absolutely right, you know? But my message is this. It's just a case of, I know it's bad. I know we're fighting our stuff and I'm involved in that too, but it's going to end well. So, you know, I think when you know that, you've got that kind of light at the end of the tunnel, maybe you don't need to put so much fear into what's really going on or what it is you're fighting yourself, because there's an end point to it. And you've got to think about, I always say to folks, like, even in the court situation, they need a runway. It takes time to file cases. It takes time for this stuff to play out. A lot of the cases now, I just don't see that there's a long enough runway for it to come into fruition before the bigger events play out.
Yes.
The reset year is this year. So when that happens, do we honestly think that the folks in the council, when they can't spend their money and they realize the pensions have been stolen and all the other stuff that's been going on, that they really care about us and what we're doing? And like,
no,
the
they'll
whole
be too busy
thing's,
trying to save their own skins.
this is it. And that's the point where we're all in the same boat. And I think that's the point when the truth is out and we all unite and do what we've got to do. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah. So sit back, enjoy the popcorn and watch the movie.
Exactly. But hopefully that helps. I mean, I don't know how that's going to go down, but I just thought, you know, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm seeing, and maybe it'll be of interest.
I think the comments will be absolutely fascinating. It will be interesting to see. It'll also be interesting to see if the channel is here tomorrow. But because it's all searchable and it's all online, it's all in the public domain, there is no reason. It's not like we've proclaimed this is a fully factual thing, believe us or believe it not. People can do their own research.
Exactly.
And we haven't said, you know, and you've not given financial advice. You've just said this is a thing and that's a thing. It's all
purely
on there.
Entertainment only.
It's pure entertainment, Google, YouTube, pure entertainment.
Exactly.
Why don't you? Gavin, thank you so much.
Thank you,
thoroughly
Richard.
enjoyed it. It's taken me on a massive journey. I've got a lot now to process, as indeed the audience will have. I've recorded this in what you call it, Zoom, which I don't normally do. So if the quality is a bit weird, apologies for that, because I'm not used to doing it that way. But it's been brilliant that Gavin has been able to utilize the screen share facility. Anyway, I think we've got another date in the diary to talk about something else, which will be fascinating and rock people. So it's always good to have you on, Gavin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Next one.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Big thanks to Gavin. I'll be back with more of my stuff on the channel, but from him and I, till next time, goodbye.
See ya.